I've got one thing to say about Downtown's special Kunio-kun no Jidaigeki Dayo Zenin Shuugou that justifies the game's existence. Something that will surprise people who aren't familiar with the Famicom's library, and probably make them stop this video to go out and play it right now. Ready? This is the sequel to Downtown Nekketsu Monogatari, aka River City Ransom. That's right, the beloved, hugely influential classic got a sequel. Okay, it got lots of sequels, and a few of them left Japan on portable systems, and now international players are getting every single game in the series. But for the longest time, people who played River City Ransom on the NES went, why didn't they make any more of these? And the answer is, they did. The plot of Kunio-kun no Jidaigeki Dayo is that Kunio was doing a favor for a sick friend, and while that was happening, his girlfriend got kidnapped. And so he's going to beat up every single gang in Japan until he finds her. The original Downtown Nekketsu Monogatari was a fairly linear affair. There were a few places where you had to branch off for a screen or two to beat up someone, but for the most part it was a straight line between Kunio's high school and the high school of his rival. Downtown Special changes that. Now there's an entire map of Japan that you can freely roam around. In fact, that's one of the most difficult aspects of the game. What map section connects with what exit isn't really clear. And while each region might only be 3 or 4 screens wide, they can have 4 or 5 different exits scattered among them. If you press start and hit B, you'll see this map of where the currently active gangs are, and learning how to navigate to them will take some time. When you encounter a gang, the A button punches, the B button kicks, and pressing both buttons simultaneously jumps. And the combat here plays just as well as it did in the original game. And unfortunately that means lots of slowdown. It also means you get to do lots of cool moves and beat up guys, and that's the part anybody remembers anyways. A new addition is that you always have a helper with you, even if you aren't playing 2-player. If you're just by yourself, the AI controls that other character, and generally speaking, it's not very effective. And it has a bad tendency to steal money from you. Your opponents are just as chatty as they ever were, and when you encounter a group of enemies, you really need to keep beating them up until their boss appears. When you beat up the boss, you take out the gang. And taking out the gang means a new gang spawns somewhere in Japan. Where in Japan? Well, it's random. To save your girlfriend, you'll have to take out all of the random gangs across the country, although one of them does respawn infinitely in order to let you grind up cash. There's around 25 bosses in total for you to fight. And since it could take a while for you to beat them all, they give you a battery save slot on the cartridge. Pressing start will bring up a menu, and here you can access your inventory, which is where you use items or equip things. Kunio, or rather Kunimasa in this game, has 6 equipment slots to be filled, and all of the equipment modifies his stats. The next option shows you Kunio's stats, but more importantly, the option after that tells you how his stats will increase. The percentages here determine how likely it is for a stat to grow. By default it's evenly spread among everything, but you can cycle it down to focus on certain areas. Then you have a list of what special techniques you've learned, and some of these can be purchased in shops, and others are learned by beating up gang leaders. Following that, you've got the save menu, and then an option to configure what your allies' behavior will be. If they get close or stay away, if they'll use weapons, that kind of thing. Under the settings menu, you have a pretty wide variety of things that you can modify in the game. These are choices to make the game easier or more difficult for you. You can change if enemies are weighted more towards attacking or defense, or you can alter if water currents will push you around. The last option is the player setting. This is where you can switch which of the 2 characters you're controlling. There's a lot of cities you can visit throughout Japan, and restaurants will serve you food that will recover health, while inns will let you sleep and recover everything. There's also gambling dens and places that sell equipment. There are also hidden shops found across the country, and you'll need to locate these in order to get the best stuff. There is also a cheat code if you want to skip all of the building up stuff and just get all of the money and all of the abilities. Just rename Kunimasa to Kogane Mushi, and then you can just wreck everything. There are a lot of glitches in this game. For example, the difficulty levels easy and kind of easy are exactly the same. Dialogue with certain characters often breaks. They'll do things like reference events or characters that you haven't seen yet. And there's one major character who may just not appear until the very end of the game. That said, a lot of people still point to this as one of the best games on the Famicom. A game that takes the already excellent Downtown Neketsu Monogatari and makes it even better. And yeah, this one's a lot of fun. Even if you don't want to pursue the story, you can have a good time just running around Japan beating everyone up, including your friend if you have that option set. The world's enormous, and there's a lot for you to do in it. Downtown Neketsu Monogatari might be the more influential game. It's the one that people outside of Japan played and mimicked when they began making their own action games. But if you ask me which one I prefer to play, it's this one. There's so much added to it, it just feels amazing.